All right, so welcome to effective communication and collaboration in the schools. I will show that opening slide for, oops, give me just a sec. All right, effective communication and collaboration with the school team. This is our parent participation lunch series. So welcome everybody. Again, we have our interpretation. Follow us on social media, and Parents Helping Parents are our partners. They're a family resource center, and here's their contact information. A little bit about me. I'm Lindsay Flatos. I'm a program specialist here at SELPA. I've been in education for 20 years now. 15 of those have been in special education, and 4 of them have been at the SELPA level. I am advocate friendly. I'm a trained mediator, and also I am a parent of a child who has a disability. So I have many different lenses when it comes to this approach. For our learning objectives today, it will be a little bit of a different approach. In order for you all to effectively communicate and collaborate, I want to make sure that we have a foundation of knowledge of special education. So we're just going to do a little bit of that to make sure you understand your rights and understand how you can advocate for your child, understand the timelines, the IEP process and what to expect. And then we'll talk a little bit about procedural safeguards, and then we'll get into those effective strategies for communication before, during, and after, and then a place where you guys can find resources. So we'll look at our resources today as well. So we do have our special education timelines, and you guys may be coming from different levels of what your knowledge is. I will share this PowerPoint at the end as well as the resources, so no worries. Or if you have your cell phone, you can take screenshots, whatever you feel comfortable with, but you will get this information. When it comes to assessments, the school has 15 calendar days from the date of the time you request to respond to your request. And then you all, as parents, have 15 days to consider the proposed assessment plan. From there, once you've signed saying, yes, I want to have my child assessed, there's 60 calendar days to determine eligibility. So you'll be having that IEP meeting within that time. I'm sure many of you know that annual plan reviews need to happen no more than every 12 months. And then that some people call it triennial. Our new word is reevaluation. Those are every 3 years. And then parents, you guys do need to be allowed to be provided copy of records. So there's 5 business days for that. And then a parent or guardian, if you guys request an IEP team meeting, that needs to be held within 30 calendar days. And so there's more details there. So not going into it too much, but you guys can have access to this. So as things come up for you, you can understand how to communicate and collaborate with your school based on having this knowledge. So going into the IEP process or the overview, so you can see the lines here. But when you go through an assessment, you sit down and have that meeting. The team then determines eligibility. You guys are looking at present levels and identified kind of those areas of need. So present levels is, where is my child at right now? What are the strengths? What are the concerns? So when there is an area of concern, now we're looking at what goals do we need? And then from those goals, we're talking about what services might be needed. And then what does that mean in what placement? And so for placement, they can be a range of things that we'll get into, but really, where will those services be provided? So what we like to think of this as sort of connecting those dots, really the meat of that IEP, the present levels, connect the dots to what goals, what might be needed, then what range of services might be needed, and in what environment will those happen. So what that might look like, when you see this little circle here where it says, how does it work? We kind of work through this circle on the IEP. So again, the present levels are determining needs. Those baselines then from those present levels go on to your goals. And we say, this is where the student is at now. This is where we want that student to be in 1 year's time. So we really want to see matching baselines and goals that'll really help you effectively communicate with your team. Just understanding, because then you can see this is where my student is at right now. They can do this thing 1 out of 5 times on the baseline, but the goal is that they'll do it 4 out of 5 times on the actual goal. So that would be an example. You want it to match so you can track progress and communicate with your team effectively. So then what you'll be able to track when you get that progress report at every progress reporting period, you can then see, are we on track to meet that annual goal? And if not, we can be sending comments or questions to the school district around, I'm not really seeing the same progress. Like, should I be concerned? Do we need to hold an IEP meeting? So having that knowledge will help you effectively communicate. And then when you look at the final goal progress, you should get, it's called, we say progress on goals or annual progress report. You'll see how all of those goal or how your child did on those goals. And you can look at that original baseline and go and see, okay, look at, even though maybe they didn't meet the goal, I can actually track that they made quite a bit of progress. They were doing it 1 out of 5 times. Now they're at 4 or 3 out of 5 times. We didn't quite meet the goal, but look at that progress. So it gives you more information. So again, some background just so you can understand what you're communicating or advocating for. So then when we look at sort of that trajectory and connecting the dots, where will the services be provided? And we say lots of big fancy words in special education, and we probably don't need to use them, but LRE is the least restrictive environment. And what that means is more access to a neurotypical peer or neurotypical peers, whatever neurotypical even means anymore, but that's what it's referring to, more opportunities in the general education setting. So you can see on this continuum, we've got the ability to provide special ed services as push in general education. We can do a little bit of push in general ed and a little bit of pull out. We can do all of our special ed services and pull out, and then all, like with some time in gen ed, you could have a child who maybe needs mostly services throughout most of the day in a special day class. You could go and have a more restrictive setting that's in residential or a non-public school, or you might be on home hospital or home instruction. So again, it's related to access to peers when it comes to the continuum of service. And why I wanted to bring that to light for you all is just the more I think that you understand, the more you can advocate, you know, maybe what to ask or what to communicate with the school district. I think in some situations, folks in school districts maybe forget to slow down and say, oh, well, we maybe have all this knowledge in our head, and so we're think we're being clear, but we're not. So if you guys don't know the information, you might not be able to communicate effectively. So for those of you that aren't aware, there are mandatory IEP team members that need to be at every IEP meeting unless you sign an excusal for them. And those are the special ed teacher, the general ed teacher, an admin designee, so either an administrator or someone who's been designated to be an administrator, a parent or guardian, and then when appropriate, a student of age or ability. You would know that as the family. A student would be a mandatory member at that time. So, or when they're 18 and if they hold the rights. Additional members that you guys might see at the meeting, and they then become required if they are providing services, would be an SLP, an OT, a school psych. They become mandatory members if they're providing services to your child. Sometimes a counselor might be on the IEP, a mental health therapist, any outside agencies working with the student, and parent invited participants. So you guys have the right to invite who you would like to your meetings. Okay, so and then I just put this up here. I'm sure if you've been in many IEP meetings, you guys see are offered your parent rights all the time. If you're not, you do need to be offered your parent rights at least annually, or in circumstances where your child maybe is going, has been suspended or having some degree of discipline, then you would need to be offered your parent rights again. I highly recommend that all of my parents read these. And sometimes language can get a little bit clunky, or like edu-speak, education language is what I maybe would call that. A new thing that I've tried, if you guys are interested in AI, like whether it's Google Gemini or ChatGPT, you could try putting pieces of the parent rights into ChatGPT and say, explain this to me like I'm a third grader. It actually even helps me understand it a little bit more. So it's an option for you. But just please read them and know your rights, because you'll know what you want to effectively communicate with your schools, or when you know what's happening. So your parent rights essentially say that you have the right to participate, you have the right to receive prior written notice, you have the right to receive consent in your primary language, you have the right to refuse consent, your child needs to be given a non-discriminatory assessment. You have the right to receive independent education evaluations if you disagree with the school district's evaluations. You have the right to access educational records. You have the right to stay in the current program if there's a disagreement about a future placement of your student. You have a right to be given a hearing regarding disagreements about an IEP. You have a right to receive mediation. You have a right to file a complaint against your school district. You have a right to be informed of school discipline and alternative placement, and you have a right to be informed of policies regarding children who attend private schools. So obviously, this is just a brief bullet point, but these are all what are inside your parent rights, and there can be an explanation for you in each of those. Okay, so let's get into when I think about an IEP. School districts like to say IEP. However, IEP is a document. There's an IEP document, there's an IEP meeting, and then there's like the entire IEP process. So I just wanted to unpack that a little bit with you all to make sure you can know what is going on and effectively communicate and collaborate. So the IEP team is working before, during, and after the meeting. So we're really focusing on that IEP document as we get close to, finding the baselines and present levels. But all year we're tracking progress. We're supposed to be communicating and collaborating with parents, and vice versa, parents communicating and collaborating. But all of you are different. So what you need and what's important to you would be really important to share early on with your case manager. Some parents are like, I just want to talk to you once a year. You know what you're doing, leave me alone. That's fine. And some parents are like, I need daily or weekly communication. It's really important to me. But your case managers won't know that unless you communicate what your needs are to them. So if you haven't done that, please do so. So that they know what is important to you. One of the things that is, I think we got that on that part. So something that we have, and I'm going to pull up my chat and share this resource with you all when I can find it. One of the things, I'm not going to get too far into like before, during, and after checklist, because if you guys come to next month's training, it will be in there. However, I wanted to touch a little bit on this and give you access to this resource now. This is called a parent checklist for IEP meetings. And we did a little bit of training on this last year, and I'm just going to continue to circle back to it because some folks are like me and really like a checklist, and it really helps me to think about what should I really be doing before the meeting, kind of all year long. What should I do during the meeting, and what kind of things should I do after? And part of those pieces are communicating and collaborating with the school district. So this before the meeting, just making sure you know the current IEP and know the goals, making lists of concerns, requesting documents in advance if that's going to support you. Consider sending your parent input ahead of time with maybe a list of concerns. When I'm facilitating or mediating IEP meetings, I see a lot of parents not sharing their questions or concerns in advance. And then they go to the IEP meeting, and what happens is then the school district may or may not know all of the answers right there. So then they have to wait an additional amount of time to get the answers. So what's really cool is if you can share those in advance, the school district can come prepared and you can leave the IEP meeting feeling settled and like your questions had answers. So highly recommend that, and just kind of knowing what's going on. And like I said before, really communicating to the case manager, this is how I will feel involved in my child's IEP. I need this level of communication, and I like it by phone, or I like it by email, or Parent Square, whatever is supportive for you. And then during the meeting, just be able to ask for clarifying questions. And one of the things that I like to see at IEP meetings that I'm at is maybe, can you explain what that would look like? So sometimes case managers will read and they've really thought through the goals and the supports and services, but I have a hard time visualizing what does that look like in my child's day? So asking the question, can you explain what that would look like? So then you can start to visualize, oh, this is what that would look like for my child. Have folks restate what they've shared if you're not sure, or you could restate what you heard if in order to reduce any misunderstandings. You could bring somebody with you if that's helpful for you. You could bring like a spouse, a partner, a friend. They can take notes. They can just be the person next to you. You have the right to bring who you want to the meeting. In my own personal situations, I always bring my mother-in-law. She is one of the caretakers in our family that helps support me. And so having her at the meetings, she's less emotional than me. So then it kind of takes okay, is this what they were saying? And so that's helpful for me. Not everyone is going to say their mother-in-law is a helpful support for them, but for me, it is helpful. At any time, you can request a break or step outside if you just need to take a break, check in, call someone, whatever. You can do that at any time. You could request visuals to support. So I have seen parents ask, when you're going to share about the behavior intervention plan or a reward system or reinforcement system, can you bring some examples? I'm not quite sure what you mean when you're talking about it. Can you bring some visuals? So share that in advance. That's a great way to communicate effectively with the team. And then another option is if you're at a point where it's too much, we can always end the meeting early and convene at another day and time. So don't be afraid to just say, you know what, this is getting really hard for me. I would like to reconvene. That is definitely your right. And then when looking after the IEP meeting, really review the finalized IEP and then request a copy if you don't receive one. So one of the things that happens at the meetings, so folks will come with maybe the school district comes with a draft IEP, but you guys make a lot of decisions, have conversations during the meeting. The case manager might be taking notes on the document that she has. Well, take a pause. If you don't feel like you want to sign the IEP right then, that's fine. If you feel like you've been doing this forever and you feel great and you know your team's going to follow through, that's fine too. It's all written down, but that's also up to you. You don't have to sign right there, and you can say, I would love to get a final copy. I'll review it and I'll get back to you. And make sure you're getting back to the school district as soon as possible, because the new IEP can't be implemented without that signature. So make sure that once you're reviewing it, that you're making those decisions. And if you see something wrong or that didn't get captured correctly, reach back out to the case manager. And it might be a typo error, or if it's a big decision, you guys might have to come back to the table, and that's okay. And then follow up on those agreed upon services. So if you have any questions or concerns around, okay, we agreed on this amount of speech, my child's reporting that, oh, they haven't been going to speech, ask someone what's going on with that. Is there a delay? Maybe there was a miscommunication about what speech was. So make sure you're really getting your questions or concerns answered soon before you get upset. You can track your own child's progress. Some parents that I work with are interested in doing this, and some just look at the progress reports given, and you can match the baseline to those progress report on your, we say every trimester or semester, depending on when students are getting report cards. That's when you should get progress reports. And then really maintaining that respectful communication and handling that at the lowest level possible, getting your concerns met. So this is what I had put in the chat, and this is just that checklist for you guys. So I'm not going to go over that, but it is the before, during, and after the IEP. And sometimes this just helps you, and you don't have to do all of it. It's just a way to say, okay, these are some things that are some good ideas or best practices. So a little bit of experience that I've had would be that in order to prevent conflict, the communication would need to start early. So we've talked about some tips already, but starting the year or now or anytime when your child's getting an IEP, start with a positive email to the team introducing your child. So I would think it's been very hard for me in my own experience to have a child who's struggling and then every year like retell the same story, and every teacher is so different or every case manager is so different. So I just started keeping a little one pager that is about my kid, the things that work, the things that don't, that yeah, and I change it as he gets older. He's 12 now, but each year I change that. And so that works for me. So if that's something that works for you and works for your team, I understand how frustrating it can be to re-explain the same things. Why don't you know? Why don't you know? But everyone, I guess, everyone's human and all teachers are different. So benefit of the doubt is where I come from. But the proactive communication will really reduce conflict later. So try to build relationships with your teachers, your case managers, and therapists or admin early in the year if that's important to you. Really having them know who to contact, what the contact information is, the best way to get a hold of you makes a big difference. And then asking questions before making any assumptions. That's a really big deal. Like, oh, my child came home and said they didn't get their speech services. If you're worried or wondering, you ask the question, you find out the answer. Hopefully, it's something that makes sense. And you're like, oh, okay, I get that. That makes sense. Oh, you're going to make it up the following week. Okay, thanks for letting me know. You can request informal check-ins or progress updates. So if it's really important to you to have a team meeting outside of like an annual plan review and you just feel like things are scattered or all over the place, call an IEP meeting and say, I just want to talk through some concerns, or I don't understand my child's schedule and he's coming home a certain way. That's okay. You can request those informal you could call it an IEP meeting, or you could request informal check-ins or phone calls. Know that you have that available to you. And then this bullet point says keep a communication log. That it wouldn't necessarily be a strategy that works for me. However, it may work for you. But communication log could look like something even on the IEP, depending on what your needs are. Well, really, if it's an IEP, it's what your child's needs are. But if your child is not able to communicate a certain way in order to make progress in the education, if the team needs to have some type of communication documentation, that's something you guys can have a conversation about at the IEP team meeting, and work through that together. So why does conflict happen? So I've been doing a lot of work around conflict and just want everyone to know that it is okay to have conflict. It's okay to disagree. Sort of how are we handling this? at the lowest level possible and moving forward that has the best results. But conflict is actually common. And so again, it's not always bad. Sometimes it means we're right on the fence of like getting somewhere and we could have a nice breakthrough. But a lot of times conflict happens because of unmet expectations. I see this all the time in the IEP team meetings that I'm in or working with families on. There's an expectation that this is going to happen. Maybe the school district thought it was over. This was the expectation, and things feel unmet. They're not at the same level. So we just want to make sure we're communicating that. I expected this. This was our action and agreement. I feel like you're not following through. I feel like you're not communicating. And then what's our plan moving forward? So communicating those needs. And then there's different perspectives on what's appropriate for the child. So we use the word appropriate a lot in special education. And what the speech therapist might think is appropriate, what the parent thinks is appropriate, what the administrator thinks is appropriate, they might look different, but that's also okay. But we have to be able to have those conversations. So we're having those politely as possible, kindly, and we're coming with less of emotions if possible. I understand that's very hard as a parent, but more of facts. So jotting down notes on what are you seeing at home? What are you hearing? What's being reported? This is what I feel like is appropriate because, not because, oh, I feel it in my heart. I mean, you can also say that, of course, we have to as parents. But what is appropriate for the child based on your knowledge? And we all have different perspectives. And when we all bring those together, we can kind of come up with a, okay, this makes sense. Another reason conflict might happen is because maybe we feel unheard or we might feel disrespected. And the truth is that happens. People all have very different personalities, and people show up differently at IEP meetings, whether it's a parent or a service provider or someone out from an outside agency. Feelings can get hurt. And so what are we doing and how are we handling ourselves when that happened? Are we saying, I really feel like you guys aren't hearing me. I've said 3 different times that I feel like my child needs this, and I'm not hearing good information back on why. Like I'm feeling unheard, and being okay with calling that out. I know that that's hard to do, but then maybe it won't linger. It won't be that pot that keeps boiling. And then, of course, if there's limitations within the system, and then that can be very frustrating. But conflict can happen when there's limitations within the special ed system or there's legal misunderstandings. Conflict does happen, absolutely. So what we really want to do is shift our minds a little bit and keep your child at the center. So we're going from that us versus them versus us, to we're an entire team around this child, and we all have a really important perspective from our area of expertise. So the IEP team all shares the same goal. Every meeting I've been in, every single person at the table truly wants the child to succeed. But where I see conflict is everyone feels like the approach or what that need is to make that success is different, or the definition of success is different. So that's what we need to be communicating around. Everyone brings their unique experiences, knowledge of the child, including and especially parents. You guys have the longevity, the knowledge, the love, all of that. So making sure that you're able to share what you want to share in the meetings is very important. I work on this every day, and I've continued to show up this way, and it is working. So an advice for you would be to assume positive intent whenever possible. I know that this is very hard, but because I know that folks really want my child to succeed, it might look different to them and I might not agree. I know that they're coming from a place of positive intent, and so it softens that conflict for me. So the best IEPs that I've seen, the best IEP meetings and the best IEP documents, again, those are a little different. They come out of collaboration, not confrontation. So being willing to communicate and collaborate and advocate for your child in a positive way will be the best for you and your child. Concerns when they arise, what do we do? First, start low level. I think we've kind of talked through that a little bit, but start low level, address your issues early, and be direct, but polite. The first level is the case manager or the general ed teacher. That's kind of that first line of, I have some questions or concerns. You can use email in order to document your concerns, but just be constructive in your tone. You don't have to be, I'm overly positive, and so that's feedback I've been given, but you can still be your personality. But just document that, be constructive in your email, and ask for clarification. And then maybe this is the time to request kind of that informal meeting, informal phone call, or even an IEP team meeting. That could still be considered low level depending on the concerns. But now let's say you've done all that. Now what? So I've done all those things and I went to this SELPA training and Lindsay said to communicate low level, but I still feel frustrated. Nobody's listening to me. Folks aren't following through. It happens. It definitely happens. So request an IEP meeting as an option. Contact the special ed, you guys, we either call them, there's area admin, there's program coordinators, special education managers. So there's folks that are on your school sites, and every school district operates a little different. There's folks on your school site that include the principal. So you could go up to the principal, or there's like special ed area administrators, or there's the special ed director. So depending on your site, you might have to take it up to another level of somebody who can get in and help you get the answers you need and deserve. Another option would be to contact us here at SLO SELPA. You could also bring in a support person or an advocate, or you could use various dispute resolution options. So one of the things that we'll do at SELPA is we're a free service, and we can help by coming in and facilitating an IEP meeting. We can do school district coaching, we can do parent coaching. We are not advocates though. And what that really just means is that we are coaching folks to no longer need us anymore. And we won't come in with a really directive approach here at SELPA. What we try to do is, the bridge to me has kind of been broken. And so we're going to repair that bridge and get folks all together. And as soon as that bridge is built, well, maybe not as soon, but a little after the bridge has been built, we'll try to fade back and let the teams kind of carry on their way. So it feels maybe a little bit softer than an advocate. And then of course you could go into mediation. You could go into due process, file a CDE complaint. Just caution on the due process would just be as a last resort, because it will cause a lot of stress for you, a lot of stress for the team. So it does happen in cases, but if that is going to get that way, have that as a last resort. Try all your other options to save your own grief. So what I was sharing is our SLO SELPA's ADR continuum. So if you did need support, so again, this is at higher level, you've tried all those other things. Here at SELPA, we have what we call an ADR, Alternative Dispute Resolution Continuum. And you call or email our office, you share your concerns. One of us, one of the representatives here, a program specialist, will call you back. And we look at, kind of think through our continuum and determine what your case might need. And it could be as simple as, this happened and I just want to know if this parent right is accurate. And I just need a little conferencing with a SELPA person, and parents go on their merry way. So we're a neutral party that can support with that. We can attend IEP meetings and go into coaching. And this coaching relationship would be for families or parents who are interested in being coached, meaning they know their relationship or advocating for their child needs support. And so they're willing to kind of show up and do the work. And then we could go into as much as, I'm not being heard at the meetings are unorganized. I just need somebody there to make an agenda, manage meeting norms, help me feel heard. We can show up and facilitate the IEP meeting as well. So you'll have access to this slide deck, and you guys can kind of see what your options are. Always first line, communicating with the schools and going up the channels, and then we're also here to support you. One of the other things that you guys will have access to is our parent resources. This is our website, slowselpa.org. And if you click on parent resources, you could click on the yellow box here, or you could click up here at the top. You'll find a page of parent resources that you'll have access to. So encouraging you to kind of look through that and see if anything jumps out at you. And then we do have a section called ADR, Alternative Dispute Resolution. So if you are having some conflict or you feel like you're at high level, you can kind of look in that section and see if there's resources that might support you there. I will put these in the chat for you, depending on the student's age or level. You could prepare your student. There's a student preparation checklist, a parent preparation checklist, and then just a sample agenda. Some IEP teams don't often use an agenda, or maybe you're newer in the experience. What does a normal agenda look like for an annual plan review? So you will have access to those. Let me get those in the chat in case someone's itching to have them now. Okay. And thank you for participating. If you have any questions, you can call, email, or check out our website. I am going to stop record and we'll go into questions.